Good morning, everybody. It's Judith Echo. You're listening to Mad Love. Let's get into it. I'm going to make an effort to use a better microphone because I notice there's like always some static or some weird sounds, and it's my phone. Because basically, what started on Anchor, that was the appeal. You pick up your phone, you just start talking. They had all these cool tools, and you made a podcast. Well, now this platform is Anchor's gone. Anchor's completely gone. So I still get in the habit of picking up my phone and making a podcast. But I have a good microphone, and it's just kind of a hassle to set that up. But I'm probably going to start using it because I hate the weird sound. Anyway, I want to stress, this is just so important. You've got to do your paperwork. My brother was very, he was bipolar, but he was also a finance major at WashU, and he graduated. He went to really good schools. He was very smart, and but he was also bipolar. And one thing about him is he was very meticulous about his investments, a super conservative investor. So, but he's got all these different accounts and all these different buckets of money. And, you know, some of it is, well, most of it has been drained down because this last year he was paying an extraordinary amount for health care. So if you want to, save your money, that's great. But the best way to go through it as quickly as possible is to start paying for health care. Different facilities were charging him because he had been there so long. He was paying a team of caregivers a very significant amount of money a week. And all that adds up. And then when you go home and you basically have a hospital in your apartment, all of that costs money. Be honest with you, hospice does not give you a ton of high quality products, so you will have to supplement them. They'll give you, you know, things for incontinence and a hospital bed, but the stuff that they give you for the incontinence is not going to be the best on the market. So I used to supplement my mom's as well. And this is way down the line care. And hopefully most of you all won't even need that quality of care for someone you love. It may go fast. They may not go into hospice. They may not stick around for any kind of long-term illness. They might get diagnosed and go pretty quickly. Everybody's situation is going to be different. None of us are psychic. None of us knows what's going to happen. But one thing you know for sure is that we're all going to go. And I know it seems like it's none of your business or anything like that, but you really need to talk to people about their paperwork, because when they die, if they do leave all these buckets of money somewhere, and some people will, they might not tell you, but a lot of times they have multiple checking accounts, multiple savings accounts, CDs, and insurance policies. Someone needs to know where all of that stuff is. In my family, I decided to be that person because I could see, um, what was going on. My brother helped pay for my mom's care. Well, he paid for my mom's caregiver. I paid for everything else. And I'm be honest with you, I was nervous because when the bipolar guy is paying a big bill, it's like, oh Lord, it could go off the racks anytime, like off the rails. It could just go like, whoosh. So I was concerned because he had a very serious episode somewhere around 2022. Of course, adding to my stress level because my mom had stopped sleeping in 2022. And I go over to my brother's house one day, and he has decided that he's just not going to take his medicine. He told my sisters because he wanted to help me. And he called me, and he said something really strange. And that's when they're not on their medicine. They just sound off. And he kept saying, I'm not going to push you on it. I'm not going to push you. I'm not going to put it. And he kept saying the same phrase over and over again. So my mom was still able to be left alone for a few minutes. So I ran up there to do whatever he was asking me to do with the phone call. It was something about his remote because he had been in the hospital and they had changed their cable service in his building or something, and he missed all of that. So I was talking to him, and he kept saying this weird phrase, and I was like, "Did you take your medicine?" And so I made a reason to go in his bedroom, go in there. The mental medicine hasn't been filled in 3 months. And those are the kind of things that you deal with when your loved one is bipolar because they love to yank themselves off the medication. And I remember just walking out there being like, "You're trying to kill me." It's simple. You and I are just simply trying to kill me. I'm a very youthful, whatever age I was, but I was like, "But y'all won't be happy until I'm dead." And he was like, he just stared at me, and I don't know, somehow somebody got him to a hospital so he could go get back on his medication. And I couldn't go visit him because I couldn't take my mom to, a mental hospital. They probably would keep her too, which isn't funny, but Alzheimer's, that's why I was able to say a lot of her situation reminded me of mental illness. And be prepared if your loved one gets Alzheimer's. A lot of the medications look a lot like what they give bipolar and mentally ill people. They have no medication for Alzheimer's. You know, and when my mom was in the hospital, they had her on Haldol, and I'm like, I know what Haldol does. Why are you giving a woman who has a memory disease Haldol? So I'm telling you, it's a lot going on out here, and you need to make yourself aware of it to save yourself some work. So I did all of his paperwork because it was clear to me that he might go off the rails anytime, and I needed him to be in a position to keep taking care of my mom. I didn't know how long that situation was going to last. And that's where caregiving gets weird. I, of course, am talking mostly about the end because that's where I am, but there's a lot of work that leads up to the finality of all of these situations. And with Tracy, that's my brother, he, I didn't know how long he was going to hang on either. Like I said, every time I walked in there, when he looked bad, the next time I saw him, he was rallying. But the one time I decided, like, I'm not going to invest in this because as soon as I invest in him, you know, being at his last legs, being on his last legs, he rallies, and then I'm emotionally like twisted up, and it was exhaustive. And even though I wasn't on his caregiving team, I did manage it, and it was starting to be stressful, and I was starting to have to get more involved. I was getting a lot of early morning phone calls. Um, and so, yeah, I'm saying all of that to say you don't want to be going through any of that and then not know about the paperwork. And I'm going to be honest with you, a lot of people haven't done anything. They don't have a will. Now, I will say this, single people, especially single mothers, usually make their child their beneficiary for everything, or their children. So that's a good practice. So a lot of you all are more prepared than you think because when you were at your job and you signed up for life insurance, you made your child or children your beneficiary. That's good. But also look at your checking accounts because even if a person has the power of attorney over your finances, as soon as you die, um, the banks aren't going to cooperate with the POA. The POA disappears as soon as someone dies. So you need a will. And if you have multiple things, if you have a complicated uh, financial situation or your parents do, go to a trust attorney, an elder care attorney, and let them sort it all out. Get you a trust, because that's the best way to avoid probate court. Because if the person dies with a house that's in their name, problem. If they die with a fleet of cars in their name, problem. You need to take care of these things while they're still alive and can sign the paperwork. And the sooner you do it, the better, because it just gives you that extra layer, that extra peace of mind. And a lot of people are gonna tell you they don't have anything. My mom would have said, I don't have anything. I was like, yeah, but you have a checking account, you have a savings account, you have things. We almost all have those. You can't really transact a modern American life without some sort of bank life. And I do know that there are people who are unbanked, but, I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about people who have worked, who draw Social Security. That money goes somewhere. So that account needs to have a beneficiary on it, a transfer on death or something. Even my car has a transfer on death. I told my nephew, I was like, you're on my transfer on death. And he was pretty much like, I don't want it that way. But anyway, I just want to stress that that's super important. It's not fun. It's not something people are just like, I can't wait to talk about this. And I get that. But it's really, really mandatory that you do it because I'm looking at all the stuff that I have to wrap up in April that isn't even my stuff and I have to do it and it's like a lot. It's a lot. It's an awful lot. Um but it's gonna go much smoother because I already did all the paperwork. So, you know, you don't have to be rich for this to be an issue. Let's make that clear. And I think a lot of people think that because they're not wealthy that they don't have to do anything. But if you've ever held a real job that you worked 9 to 5, there's a chance that you need to have your affairs in order. And it's just important. And I'm glad I did it for my mom. I did it for my brother. This time last year, I was urging my sister and some of my friends. I'm like, I have a friend whose mom's about to be 80. I'm like, yeah, you got to do it. You got to do it. And I've done paperwork for several people, and it's just worth it. It's just easier because nobody wants anything to happen. Nobody wants their loved one to get injured or get sick or anything like that. But this is such a huge part of the preparation for it. And I don't know why there's so much stigma around it. Because we all come here knowing we're going to go at some point. But you want to make sure that you're prepared as best as possible. And paperwork is a big part of that. Power of attorney over healthcare, power of attorney over finances. And, if you're married, you probably have done some of this. I get it, but you probably should look into it if you haven't. But especially if you're single. And there are a lot of people who are single. I think, if the divorce rate is 50%, that gives you an idea that there are a ton of single people out here. And I think right now, if I recall correctly from my very excellent newsletter, there are about 22 million people aging solo. So that means they don't have any kind of partner and they're out here, they probably have children, but if you don't have children, you still need to go and make sure you have all your paperwork in order because we don't think about it, and I didn't think about it until my mom got sick. You are basically a little business. You may be living a human life, but to the government and to the people who make your life easier or harder, you're a little business. You're an entity. In fact, I don't think you're really dead until the government says you're dead. You dig? So get out here and make sure you're on top of these things because if you truly love these people that you're going to leave behind, you will do this for them. Especially if you know your child is going to be a wreck if something should happen to you, or your children aren't good with money or they're not uh, super organized. You be organized and you get this stuff done for them because you love them. No other reason than that. And if you don't have to use the information for another 20 years, thank God. But it needs to be handled, and I don't think we stress it enough. And I hate to say it, but maybe the government wants you to not handle things so they can just keep the money. Maybe. I don't know. How many people die a year? A lot. How many people die a year with all of their affairs in order? Probably a lot, probably half, I would say, just based off of the conversations I have with people. And certainly I don't know everybody in the world, but a lot of people who aren't rich but do okay, middle class. I know it's stretched thin, but there's still a middle class. There's still a class of people who work every day and have insurance and have benefits. And, it's just important that they pay attention to that element because I'm thinking the government is fine with you not being prepared so they can keep the lion's share of the money. With all the things that we've heard this year, that doesn't sound all that shocking. Duh, duh, duh. I mean, that sounds pretty much on brand. They exploit our ignorance over everything. If they're exploiting our ignorance about what's in our food, they don't care if you understand your money or not. Yeah. Have a good day.